quick message before we start. We hope our conversations open up new perspectives and new ideas for our listeners, and our goal is to be informative. But we want to emphasize that this isn't a substitute for individual therapy, and we're not providing medical or psychological advice here. If you feel moved by what you hear, and if you want to explore it more deeply, or if there's something in your life you'd like to work on, please reach out to an LGBTQ affirming therapist online or in your area. You'll be glad you did.
Welcome to the Psych Out Podcast, where two psychology nerds get psyched up for LGBTQ affirming history, research, and practice.
Welcome, everyone, to the Psych Out Podcast. My co-host, Chris, is continuing to do self-care and finals, not at the same time, one after the other. So I am here with my dear friend and colleague, Dr. Jami. Jami, do you want to talk a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, I'm a psychologist, and I met you, Jen, via a coffee date, and was like, this person's cool. Talked about how I was a broke grad student, and you all of a sudden needed a dog walker, which was that was awesome. And then we just kind of like grew from there, and I've learned a lot from you, and now I'm here, no longer a baby psychologist.
Yes, and like someone whose practice I really look up to and the work that you do, I really admire. So it's extra special to have you here. And I forgot to say I'm Dr. Jen. I am a clinical psychologist in private practice who mostly works with LGBTQ plus clients. I am singing it now because I've said it so many times at the beginning of this podcast.
Insert clip. Yeah.
It's become musical. Eventually this podcast is going to go full musical. Just watch.
Oh my, that's on brand for you.
Yes. It totally on brand. Okay, we've we started out with like a few Sondheim references, and then now we've done a whole like episode about Wicked. Like, just watch. It's getting bigger. Someday this is just going to be about show tunes, everybody. Which very gay. That's cool. We're not just on brand. We're on topic. We're on book. Okay. So, Jami, what are we here to talk about today? Big breath. Big breath.
I no longer go to therapy. So sometimes I've done it before. I have done it. All this psychoanalysis. I was someone's case study. It was like a thing. Anyways, but I was scrolling through TikTok and a few weeks ago. And of course, like I lingered on the things that made me feel very spicy. And then my entire feed became the things that made me spicy.
As social media is wont to do.
Yeah, like I know what was happening, but like I still couldn't stop myself. It's like I wanted to be mad because I was like, look at these idiots. Yeah. And then I was like, who would understand what I'm talking about? And so I was like, Jen gets it. So
yes,
you need to do a podcast about this so people know. And they're like, do you want to go on it? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Okay, let's do it.
Yes.
Less angry. It's been a couple weeks and I've detoxed.
Yes. Well, and who knows when we'll actually post this, probably very shortly. And I don't know, we were talking before podcast. You're still spicy about it.
I'm always a little mad about stuff. Yeah.
And you're not the only person who I've heard about this from. Not being myself like really immersed in that discourse because I don't do social media. But what we're gonna do is, because you sent me a couple of screenshots of TikToks that were particularly frustrating, but I want you to say, what is it about? What are these about?
Yeah. So what started this was the whole JoJoSiwa thing.
Who's JoJoSiwa? Let's start with, yeah.
JoJoSiwa is a pop star, I shall say, who has caused there's been a lot of controversy around her in general, especially within the queer community.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what we're here to talk about. The thing that really was kind of the start of everything was that she was in a relationship with like an AFAB non-binary person, and then went on to this reality show. What was it? The Big Brother UK. And on this show, she met this guy named Chris Hughes. Connected with him right away. There is some chemistry going on, and then upon returning home after the end of the show, like broke up with their partner, and then very quickly after became like Instagram official with Chris Hughes. And what was really upsetting to a lot of folks is that JoJoSiwa was like really big, like lesbian icon. I don't know if that's
literally the only things that I knew about JoJoSiwa prior to this is that she was on Dance Moms. that she identified as a lesbian and talked about it a fair amount, and that she claimed to have invented gay pop. So, like, she was definitely allying herself with gayness quite vocally up till that point.
Yeah, and so there were a lot of feelings that came up. And it's like, along with JoJoSiwa, there was another situation with a singer called Fletcher, who I didn't know about. And then also later, Billie Eilish, like both like dating men. And these are people, which I understand there's not a lot of like queer women icons out there.
Yeah. People were mad.
Yeah, anger and hatred. It's like something was being done to them. And we can maybe go into some of like the screenshots or whatever to go into the main themes. But I kept seeing the same things over and over again.
Yeah.
Should we go into
and just a couple more pieces of contextualization. I think I do remember one of them apparently like erased everything LGBTQ from their profile.
Oh, Fletcher.
And I think that was part, and this all happened in Pride Month, so that felt very emotional to people. And I think it happened, the first Pride Month of the second Trump administration, in which we're all feeling emotional about our identities as queer people. So, like, just to set the environment, like, it was rife for a discourse that could sort of carry our emotion and distract us from the real source of our troubles, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So that's what we're talking about. And we're going to talk about sort of 3 of the screenshots that you sent me and quote them, and then sort of discuss what we see in them about issues with bisexuality and biphobia in our community. And I think the first one we want to talk about, and I'll read it, is it says, "When I came out to my mom as a lesbian, she cried and asked if I could just be bi instead of fully gay." And let me pause there and say, I have never heard of that before. Ever. I've never heard of a parent say, "I would rather you just be bi." Ever. It's not that I don't believe this person. It's just like, I don't think many parents are out there going, I'm so fine with a bi kid. Anyway, stop acting like y'all have it worse right now than other queer people. Again, suggesting that bi people, well, we can get into that in a minute. Bi people have a privilege in the straight community because they could end up in a hetero relationship. And in today's hostile climate, that is safety and security that not all queer people are guaranteed. Don't act like it isn't safer as a cis woman to like men right now, given the state of the world. So, like, this one is very clear about the fear that it's speaking out of. Very, very clear. Yeah. And I kind of want to go over this bit by bit. I've already talked about have you ever heard of a parent like being happy that they have a bi kid rather than happy that they have a lesbian kid, like ranking bi somehow above lesbian? I really haven't. Like, I could sort of see how a parent might be, because then you might have kids, which lesbians have biological children. You're experimenting.
Phase.
I can just like brush it off. I mean, I could sort of see that, but for the most part, I think what you get are just a different set of stereotypes. If you say you're bi, or the parent being like, "Oh, that's nice, dear, pat, 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 moving on." Right? Like, it might be somewhat different, but I've certainly never heard of that hierarchicalization. Oh, look, I said that word. That was a hard word to say. I've never heard of that from parents. That doesn't mean it never happens, right?
But I think newer kids, because in my generation, parents don't even know what that means. All they hear is, "I like a girl." So it's all the same thing. But maybe for people now, they're like, "Oh, everyone's saying that they're bi. Maybe my kid's just doing that, but they're not really identifying as like a real."
Like, maybe it's less real, which is its own kind of problem. I do also want to point out, like, there's this idea of sort of like ranking oppressions, which happens in the queer community all the time. And on the one hand, I want to say, not a fan of doing that. And on the other hand, like, the studies are pretty clear about who is having the biggest like mental health, at least, response. Which, do you want to speak to that briefly?
Yeah, like across the board. I mean, what is it? Increased risk for even like sexual assault, like mental health across the board. It's like always trans people, or is it would you say trans women, or just
trans women and like trans women of color, trans women who are not trans women of color, bi women?
So there's always that fun order. And I
Yeah.
think people get tripped up on like when someone that is identifies as like bi or queer or non-monosexual, whatever,
Hmm.
they feel like if you're expressing your own like concerns and discomfort, that you're then like minimizing others'
Yeah.
discomfort. And like I know like I have my own issues from being a like bi woman dating like a cis man. But I also know like when me and him go to the mall and hold hands, it doesn't feel the same way as it felt when I was like dating women.
Yeah. Yeah. There is an ability to hide to some extent, which is not necessarily mentally good, right?
Yeah, there's something else that comes from that, which doesn't mean that I'm saying that you don't have a different experience that might be hard in a different way than me.
Hmm.
There's not a competition, but there's this defensiveness for other people to be like, well, then that means you're minimizing me and you're minimizing what
Yeah.
I'm going through.
Yeah. Which, I will say as a bi person, like dating a woman, married to a woman. Sorry, wife, I am not
Sorry.
dating another woman. I'm married to you. Happily so. Like I do know the difference. I do know that different feeling and that like having to think about where I can go. And that matters. Like that issue of safety matters. And also, I don't think that I've never felt like that somehow invalidated any of the discomfort that I felt when I was bi and dating men and invisible, or that you report about your own experiences. Like they're different, not ranked.
Yeah, and even I mean, this is something that's also experienced by like femme lesbians.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. And again, like I think there's a tendency to want to rank and judge, and there are different risks. Yeah, but invisibility is painful. Invisibility
Mhm.
is painful. So, bi people have privilege in the straight community because they could end up in a hetero relationship. And in today's hostile climate, that is safety and security that not all queer people are guaranteed.
Mhm.
Thoughts about that?
Yeah, so I think like zooming out, my bigger problem with all of this is like who you're being mad at,
Yes. Yeah.
right? Like we were just talking about, yeah, especially now, um, with all like political background and everything, it does feel I'm sure like more scary to be out and seen like that. And the person to be upset about that is all the people like creating that kind of environment, not the person who's in the relationship.
Yes.
And what makes me mad is all of this like infighting when it's like, who are we supposed to be like? Why are we mad at each other?
Well, let's think. Why would we be mad at each other? Who might benefit from us being mad at each other? The very people that are creating this atmosphere of fear.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Breaking our alliances is a strategy. And I really do, like your point is so well taken. And I talked about this in another episode, but I think you and I'm saying it now, so we have to hold ourselves to it. We're going to both read this and talk about
Okay.
it on this podcast together at some point. Shiri Eisner's Bi Notes for a Bisexual Revolution. Like that's part of like what she's getting at too, is that bi folk become the substitute for the people who we're actually angry at and the people who are actually hurting us, which doesn't help us at all,
Yeah.
and hurts bi people unnecessarily.
Yeah.
And you can hear the sadness and the fear. Not to psychoanalyze too much this, but you can hear the sadness and the fear in this post. And it's so sad because it's directed at people who could be allies about that. All right, you ready to move on to the next one?
Mhm.
Okay. If you bring your straight white boyfriend to Pride, it is not lesbians' obligation to make you and him feel valid. Some of you guys just aren't ready to unpack the fact that lesbians make you feel insecure in your bisexuality because whenever you date a man, you subconsciously erase your queerness and treat other queer people, particularly lesbians, weirdly because of it. This feels like there's like a specific person that they're talking about.
Yeah.
Who is this? It's very, very specific. But let's go piece by piece. Okay. If you bring your straight white boyfriend to Pride, it is not lesbians' obligation to make you and him feel valid. thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm wondering, I mean, first off, what this person means when they say make you feel valid.
Right.
Unfortunately, I don't think I would be going to a pride with my boyfriend, even though, like, to me, I'm like, why should I hold it back? Because I don't want to be kind of looked at. I don't want to be kind of like seen as like you're not, it feels painful, like you're not allowed to be here, or you're not even fully here.
I mean, that's exactly what this is pretty much saying, right? If you come, don't expect us to welcome you. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not saying like you don't need to come up and give me a hug, but
Right.
I mean, this reminds me of a situation I experienced back with my ex, she who shall not be named, where we were at the Abbey, and she like met some like random man there, and they were talking, and I was kind of like on the side, and I remember and they didn't know each other. He was just initiating conversation. I remember him going, "Ugh, look at all these straight people here. Why are they all here? Like, go do your own thing." And I remember thinking, like, well, I mean, first off, who's straight, who's not, who's like,
right. How do you know that? Yeah.
and like, I understand like the wanting to have safety in your space and wanting to feel like normalized in your space, but it was just so like this idea like you're not supposed to be here,
Yeah.
right? Without
Yeah.
knowing really anything about the people. And so I think, you know, this particular TikTok is maybe like referencing people saying they feel uncomfortable going into these spaces because I mean a lot of them don't feel very comfortable if you're bi and you're bringing like your partner that doesn't fit in with who everyone else thinks whatever. Um, but I don't think that means that you're wanting a red carpet like rolled out.
Yeah. Though I will say, like, first of all, bisexuals have been involved with Pride and are like in the organization of the first Pride from the beginning. So it is a place for bisexuals. And in fact, like one of the people who was involved in organizing, sometimes it's called the Mother of Pride, but like that's an exaggeration. And I've fully forgotten her name at the moment, so I'll link it. Brenda Hughes, something
Should
like
know this.
that. Well, whatever. I will. You know what'll happen is I'll just record myself saying
We'll be like,
the name,
yeah,
and then we'll like edit in me saying.
and your mouth's like.
I just gave a presentation that included talking about her like a week ago too. But okay, yeah. So she really, we can contest whether we should call her that, but it is the case that she was involved in the planning. There were and she was with a man at the time, and
With the man, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, pretty much her whole involvement. She was with a man, and I gotta say, I actually do think that that's the point of Pride. I do think that if you show up to Pride, it should be with the expectation that you welcome all comers.
Yes.
Who come in good faith.
Yes.
Who come in good faith. I really do. And yeah, I mean, I just think that, again, it's about like this competitive idea, or this who will we welcome and who won't we, only helps our oppressors.
Yeah.
It doesn't help anyone else at all.
At LGBTQ Evolutions, we know that change starts with people like you. Every act of kindness, every dollar, and every moment of your time brings us closer to removing the barriers that prevent our friends and family from being themselves. Together, we can create a brighter, more compassionate future for our community. Donate today with the link below.
So I don't know. I am very disappointed in this particular vision of Pride. And I have a friend who co-organizes a queer group with me, and it's an open one. It's a queer group at our synagogue. And like, we don't check people's, queer cards at the door. And the phrase she always uses is like, let's change our perception from straight until proven otherwise to queer until proven otherwise. And just operate on that. And it's a really transformative way of looking at people. But yeah, I thought our job at Pride really was, I mean, not you personally, whoever wrote the Twitter, you can interact with whoever you want at Pride, but like, that is the point of Pride. Some of you guys just aren't ready to unpack the fact that lesbians make you feel insecure in your bisexuality. Because whenever you date a man, you subconsciously erase your queerness and treat other queer people weirdly because of it. I'm interested in your take on that part of it. Thoughts?
Well, first off, I'm unsure. I mean, treat other queer people weirdly. It might be, I mean, I'm imagining seeking acceptance or like talking about it. I don't even really like, what do you think the person means by that last, like,
I don't know. Weirdly is pretty vague. I will say though that like the second half of this statement doesn't jive with the first half, which is like, if you bring your straight white boyfriend to Pride, it is not lesbian's obligation to make you and him feel valid. Well, if that's the case, then why do you think that bisexual people might be weird around you?
uh-huh.
Right? Like, who's erasing their queerness?
Yeah.
You know, because what I've seen and experienced is you're very aware of your queerness. It's other people's tendency to erase it
Yeah.
that makes you feel weird.
Yeah, the feeling of like I have to like prove myself. Look, here's my carabiner on the front of my pants. You know, check me
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's similar to like how I feel just being like a biracial person. It's the total same vibe.
Mm,
Where it's like I feel like there's almost these tests I have to say like I'll do might want to do something so that people know ahead of time that I'm saying, oh, I fit in with you that I wouldn't do otherwise.
yeah, yeah. So like you end up like having to work harder to prove that you belong.
Yeah,
Yeah. So maybe that's some of the weird vibe. Um, I mean, we're also taking this as in good faith that they're acting weirdly, where I will say that this sounds a little bit like projection.
yeah,
Um, and you know, the idea that bisexuality is not its own thing and is not a stable identity and only exists so long as you are not in a quote hetero relationship um, doesn't really come from bisexual people. And I don't even think it comes from like the lesbian community or the LGBTQ community in general. I think that is a general social bias toward monosexuality that we're, again, like it's blaming the patriarchy, blaming bi people for the patriarchy. that's that's where we're getting. This is such a queer circular firing squad here, you know?
yeah.
Okay, you ready to go to the last one?
Hmm.
This one is, I think, maybe the doozy conceptually. Um, as a lesbian, I don't care that you're bi. Well, that's nice. Um,
That's good
cool.
start. Good start.
Good start. Good start. We're batting 100 now. I don't care about your boyfriend. Cool. Didn't want to share him anyway. I care that JoJoSiwa and Fletcher pop up and say sexuality is fluid, like a fact. I am a proud lesbian. My sexuality is not fluid, and I won't be turned by the right man. This narrative is lesbophobic, misogynistic, and tired. Let lesbians live.
I'm not gonna lie, I commented on this one.
Oh, I want to know what you said.
I was
What are you willing to say?
so I can see how like that feels like invalidating and my
You were such a therapist in this comment. Oh my goodness.
also I don't want this shit to come back to me. Like I have
Right, 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 right. I get it.
but like also like people like what's the point? Am I trying to be another dick or like am I like, trying to
Mhm,
actually like say
mhm.
something? And I was just like, when people say sexuality is fluid, what they typically mean is just the idea that it could be different for a whole bunch of different people. And for some folks, it may feel like it changes, it fluctuates, and for others, it doesn't.
Yeah.
So there's no like a requirement that means that you have to change. And for me, I bring this up a lot too with my clients, especially whenever I work with younger kids, because there's sometimes this idea of like, oh, once I pick something, I have to stick with it, even if I'm not quite sure. And like, what is
Hmm.
more like nuanced than your sexuality and gender, right?
Hmm.
It'd be nice if it wasn't to feel a lot more comfortable, maybe, but like it's just not the way it is. So I always bring that like, oh, like if you like you can identify as X now, and if later if you feel like it doesn't fit, that doesn't mean that what how you identified before then wasn't real and wasn't really you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if it never changes, it never changes. The point is
Yeah.
that yeah, I feel like I noticed that one across a lot of TikToks, this really misunderstanding of what it means when you say sexuality is fluid. And I think that's tied to a lot of people's experience like with like, oh, you just haven't met the right person, or guy at
Yeah,
the bar.
these two things are being conflated with each other, right? The
Yes.
like you will be turned. That if there is fluidity in sexuality, then that means that that stereotype is correct. And I don't actually think those come from the same place
Yeah.
conceptually. Like, right? One comes from the whole idea that like lesbians are like misfired straight people.
Mm.
Um, and then the other idea of fluidity comes from the idea that, like, yeah, sexuality and gender are actually very unique and personal things, and that identity can shift and change over time. And I actually remember way back when you and I gave a presentation at a conference together on like sexual identity fluidity. And one of the things that we put in there was like a scale of fluidity, like the idea that some people's experience of themselves is very fixed,
Hmm.
right? On one side of this like scale, and some people on the other side of the scale are like rolling with the waves of the ocean, right? And other people are somewhere in the middle. And that there's some positives and negatives to framing it that way. But like there's a way of framing this that doesn't say no, you're wrong, you don't know yourself.
Yeah, and I see this actually. I work with most of my people have OCD, so we love the like not having certainty,
Uh-huh.
and
Yeah.
oh god, and a lot of my with my groups, a lot of people are queer and have OCD. So we have a lot of people questioning like, oh, am I really actually trans, or am I really like actually like a lesbian? Because I saw a picture of a some shirtless dude in a magazine and I thought, oh, he looks kind of hot. Oh god. And it's
Uh-huh.
like,
It's okay.
it's okay.
Yeah.
First off,
It's okay.
see that, not want to have sex with them. It's like, yeah, it's a hot. That's felt some weird tingles. I don't know what. Moving on. Versus like,
Mhm.
or even if you did, like, what does that mean? It's like your whole identity isn't just like exploded, thrown into the volcano.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and now I'm going to do like what has become a bit of a segment on the show, which is Jen's Den of Dialectics.
Oh,
Uh, yeah, Chris has Chris's narrative therapy corner at the Den of Dialectics, right? Because we're talking about like balancing this idea of our identity as like a defined fixed thing, as something we can put words to and have confidence in, and have confidence that tomorrow it's going to be the same as today. It's going to be the same as yesterday, right? And there's a lot of appeal to that. There's a lot of that that's important. Like we have trouble having coherent relationships with other people, and definitely trouble advocating for ourselves politically if our identities are all over the place.
yeah.
That is true. And it is also, I think, true, like our scale suggested, that for some people that is even more important and perhaps experienced as even more true than for others. Like for me, it's like if I want to be femme one day and mask the other, I'm all good. But for other people, that would be upsetting. And for me, the fact that like my idea of my sexual orientation changed quite a bit when I was in my 30s is fine. Whereas for other people, that would be really distressing. But so, and that's fine, right? So on this side, we want this fixed identity. We want like some continuity.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, there's the fact that we have no real control over our own bodies,
Mm.
over our own hearts, so over our own genitals sometimes. Like
Sometimes.
I know over our sense of ourselves, we have
Yeah.
that there are surprises in store for us in the future. And both it's uncomfortable to entirely live in one or the other of those spaces. We have to be able to have room for both, right?
Mm.
And what it feels like is that people are uncomfortable with bisexuality somehow representing the like chaos and unformedness of that second side of the dialectic,
Yeah.
and that it invalidates. Whereas I will say that my identity as bisexual, and as someone whose sexuality is fluid, is an identity. It's not shifting and changing. It is an identity in its own right. And this writer seems to be experiencing bisexuality as the lack of an identity
Mm.
rather than its own thing.
Yeah, and I think that's the part that people get tripped on, because like for some folks who are especially if you're young or whatever, you don't even have to be like
Mhm.
a kid or anything, but like it can be like, oh, I'm unsure. I don't know. I feel I want to have some experiences. I want to do this and that. And that could be a way to be like, this is how I feel now until I kind of learn about myself a little bit more. And that's totally valid and fine, and also doesn't make bisexuality not a real thing.
Yeah,
right?
100%. Yeah. Anything that you want to add? I have a couple of things in my mind, but I want to give you a chance. Anything we didn't get to and we didn't say that you want to say?
No, I mean, I would say the only thing that I just want to reiterate is like, let's concentrate our anger towards who it should be directed to.
Mm-hmm. And who is that?
Not your friendly neighborhood bisexual woman. Let's like the politicians and who the creepy dude at the bar. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
and to know that you're, feeding into those stereotypes when you say things like, oh, like bi women will just end up with a man or will always cheat with the man. It's like you're feeding into those like patriarchal narratives, the ones that you also really freaking hate because they've done a lot of damage to you.
Yeah. Yeah. We are, in fact, all victims of the same perpetrator, which is patriarchy. And I think the two things that I'll add, and I just want to reiterate this one because it's so poignant to me, like it is not in the spirit of pride to exclude each other.
Yeah.
That it is not. That is, to me, at all. It's not what pride is all about in the celebratory sense that pride has taken on, but it's absolutely not what pride is all about in the revolutionary sense that it started out as. Pride was about liberation. It was about giving people the space in their sexuality and, sadly, to a lesser extent at the time, in their gender, to exist and to be themselves. And if we start talking about our existence as somehow invalidating or overshadowing someone else's, then that is not what we were fighting for.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that I will say is time after time in this podcast, when we've talked about sort of the waxing and waning of queer acceptance in our culture and access to healthcare and political power and all of that, what has decayed and degraded our gains has been when we have been divided against each other.
Yeah.
Right. And by people being statistically the majority of the LGBTQ community, we have such common cause and such strong interest in staying allied with each other. Let's not let JoJoSiwa split us apart.
I think of the numbers, like if the invisible majority were to like feel comfortable coming out, how many more people we would have on our side, like doing work,
Yeah. Yeah. Now I want to end with that the myth of the non-practicing bisexual, because it's so great. So tell about the myth of the non-practicing bisexual.
I was reminded, I don't even know how old this interview was. Like I saw this like anyways.
It was when True Blood was popular, so it was a while ago, like 15 to 20 years.
Yeah, it popped up on my feed like recently. The Larry King interview with Anna Paquin. Am I saying her name right? Paquin?
I think you are. That's what I'm talking about. I think so. Apologies if we're saying it wrong.
Yeah. But she was doing the interview, and she's married, I think still married, to a man, her co-star. Had 2 beautiful children, monogamous relationship. And Larry King was like, "Oh, so I heard that you were bi. So are you a non-practicing bisexual?" And I just loved her reaction. She was just like, she was very polite, but like, that doesn't make any sense. And like, if you're, when you're like not dating anyone, you're single, are you no longer straight? Like, it doesn't matter. Just like if she was all of a sudden dating a woman, she's, yeah.
I would say maybe she would enjoy getting more practice as a bisexual. But what a hilarious myth that also encapsulates a lot of the stereotypes that we all push back against, which is like your sexual orientation is only defined by who you are currently having sex with.
Yeah. Also, side note, not to get too tangential here, but like, I wonder if you would have asked the same question if she was married to a woman. Because I think this is tied to the idea that like, being with a man is like the gold standard.
So now you've given it up. You've hung your bi hat up on the wall, whereas if you're a woman, maybe you will. Yeah, no, I can see that. I can totally see that for sure. It's like sometimes we are gay light and sometimes we are straight light in the like minds of people outside of us. Sometimes we're like just a shade away from gay and sometimes we're just a shade away from straight. And neither of those actually takes bisexuality seriously as its own thing. And I really think that there's a lot of power to be had in starting to explore bisexuality as its own thing.
Yeah.
And that will eventually lead us somewhere down the road in this podcast, hopefully not too far, to reviewing Sherry Eisner's Bi, Notes for a Bisexual Revolution, because that is part of what she is talking about, is that we change our way of understanding queerness if we take bisexuality seriously as its own thing. But, we don't have to have JoJoSiwa in our camp if we don't want. Whatever. She can be in or out. Let her figure her stuff out. Agreed. And I think that Anna Paquin's response, like, that doesn't make any sense, is kind of the response that I have to all of these TikToks that you shared with me. It's just, that doesn't make any sense. That's responding to a thing in your head. That's not responding to an actual bi person in front of you.
Yeah, it just shows how entrenched it is. Like, you are, one or the other. Our minds just do not make sense of it. And it's so uncomfortable until we wait, pick one so that I can then have you in this box that you can sit there. I don't have to revisit it,
Yeah, we like our boxes.
Yeah.
So in summation, everybody, fight the patriarchy, not each other.
Yay.
All right. Thank you so much for joining me, Jami. It's been a pleasure as always.
I'll see you Saturday for your Pride party.
Yes, it's going to be fun. Okay, everybody. I wish you all could come to our Pride party too, but you can't. So you're missing out, but that's okay. I hope you're having your own Pride celebrations, or did, since this will probably be aired in the rest of the summer. But 100%, I'm so happy to have you. And everybody, please celebrate Pride inclusively, whether it's this year or next year. Everybody belongs at Pride who is there in good faith. And I can't wait until the next episode. Everybody, thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yay, bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Psych Out Podcast. For more information on today's subject, information about our charity, or to find our Patreon, check the links below. Join us next time to learn more about the psychology of who we are.
These are difficult times. We know that some of you out there are suffering so much that you might be thinking of ending your life. If you're having thoughts of suicide, please reach out to professionals for help. You can go to an emergency room, call 911, or reach out to the hotlines we have linked in this description below. I know that many of us have had bad experiences in medical settings, but there are people, many people in this field who want you to live. Please reach out for help so that you can find them. We want you around for our next talk.